the great KBC, and this is KBC News Check, a program that ensures that we keep you afloat on all the latest happening in the country. Today being the 17th day of January 2023, and today is a very monumental day. I say this because today is when the tenure of two chairpersons of two independent commissions that are enshrined in the Constitution and are mandated in the Constitution to help actualize two things: fight corruption and carry out matters electoral. I'm talking about the IEBC Chairman Wafula Chebukati and two other commissioners. What does that leave us, or where does that leave us as a commission, is that we have only one commissioner who happens to be facing a tribunal, that is Irene Masit. Are we staring at a constitutional crisis? The reason I'm asking this question is because, according to the law, 6 months to the end of the tenure of a chairman or a commissioner of the IEBC, the president should have already started the process of ensuring there is a select panel that will carry out the whole recruitment exercise. But there is still hope, because on Thursday, the Senate will be having a special sitting where we'll be debating the IEBC bill, just to put things into perspective, and a framework to ensure now that we'll be having a new commission with new commissioners. Some have argued that we should first of all wait for the tribunal. We see whether the IEBC Commissioner Irene Masit will be ejected out of office, so that we may have a clean and lean IEBC that will be free, fair, and independent to carry out the electoral mandate. That is part of the discussion that we will be having, and especially now that yesterday the IEBC Chair Wafula Chebukati did start us up with the latest report on how the 2022 election were carried out. A number of issues emerged, including matters security, because once in the Kenyan politics, matters electoral are quite emotive. That is will be forming part of our discussion today. Remember, we are live from the broadcasting house here in the county of Nairobi, and we are also live on all our social media outlets. For comments, suggestions, or even where you are watching us from, we highly recommend you do that. At Bentro Njue, at KBC Channel 1 is my and our KBC Twitter handle. Away from that, the politics of the day, the president did have quite a busy weekend where he spent a couple of days in the Nyanza region, where has been interpreted both as a development tour and also politics always have to chip in. Where are we as a country? The state of politics is what we'll be discussing this morning, and my sign language interpreter colleague on the bottom right of your screen is Byron Abuli. And right in what we are looking at, we are also looking at a number of issues. I mentioned about two chairpersons who their tenure happens to end today. The other one happens to be the EACC, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission Chair, retired Archbishop Eliud Wabukala. The 6-year tenure also ends today. And yesterday also, EACC did come up with a report of how the year was, and especially when it comes to matters fighting corruption. Talking about over 900 billion that has been able to be recouped that was proceeds of crime. That is also something that we'll be touching about. And allow me now to introduce my panelists this morning. On my immediate left, we have the MP Isiolo County, or if you like, the women rep for Isiolo County, Honorable Mumina Bonaya. Karibu sana. You are elected on a Jubilee party ticket. Okay. And just next to her, we have Dr. Harun Issack. Harun, who is a political analyst and also a leadership and governance expert. Ladies and gentlemen, karibuni.
Thank you, Njue.
And to begin with you, Mheshimiwa, kindly, we are just slightly over 100 days since the Kenya Kwanza government took over office. What can you say in terms of how they have carried themselves before we look at the electoral matters?
Thank you, Njio, for this opportunity. I think 100 days is the number of days we are looking at to be able to gauge how the government has fared on. And for some of us who are elected, we probably will want to check that against the people we represent. And where I come from, the two burning issues or the major challenges that the people in North are facing. One is security, and second is the drought. And I will want to speak how the government has performed in those two areas. On matter security, I really want to commend the government for the good job that they are doing. And I will not shy away to say that there's much improvement in security sector. As you know, North has been troubled for a very long time. And I like the way the government is hands-on in terms of within the 100 days that they've been in office to address issues, systemic issues that has been there for a very long time that has never gotten attention, in terms of ensuring that level of surveillance is increased. The response is timely, and I really want to thank Professor Kindiki for the job that he's doing. So in those, in the sector, security sector, we are hopeful and we are happy. And I'm saying this on behalf of the people I represent.
Yeah, okay. Yes, and it's a good thing because the two of you are two leaders from the northern frontier, and security is one of the issues that we were supposed to touch on a little bit later, but we can clear it out right now and say that your region has been worst affected by the drought, and there have been mitigation efforts by the government and other stakeholders. Where can you rank the Kenya Kwanza government in regards to the drought? More specifically, when you talk about the northern frontier counties?
I want to be very objective. You've heard me say good things about response when it comes to security.
Yes.
So far, we are happy. But when it comes to drought, I'm a little bit disappointed. What I expected to see is, synergy between national and county government in responding to the situation on the ground. We're having a very difficult moment, where we are losing the herd, and it's now gotten to a point where we are even losing human lives. So the bigger the problem, my expectation was the robust the response. I have not seen that. Unfortunately, I have not seen that, and I'm hopeful that we will see that in the coming days.
And we will be touching on that a little bit later as well. And Doc, I also like to reel you in with these two factors that Mheshimiwa has mentioned here in terms of security. We are just slightly over 100 days since the Kenya Kwanza government took office, and also being a leader, she has mentioned that in terms of the security matters, the work that is being done will quite bear fruit. So though not right now, or even right now, but they will bear fruit. But when it comes to the drought response in the northern frontier, she is a little bit cagey on how the government has carried itself and would want more intervention. I would like you to touch on those.
Right, thank you very much, Njue. Thanks, Mheshimiwa, for being in the same platform. I would like to bring the issue of security later and bring up the issue of drought first, because security, the main factor in Asal region's security is basically because of resources. Resources has become a big issue. Having had drought for almost 6-7 seasons that have not fully realized means the productivity of pasture, the productivity of food within the area has become minimal. You know very well, quite a number of people have lost their animals in that region. And the fact that there is quite a number of raids in most part of the country where people think that they are cattle rustling, or people think that they are banditry, much of it is resources. And that comes to now the point of Mheshimiwa saying that issues of drought has not been addressed very well. In terms of the catchment area, malnutrition cases are very high. People are now trying to survive on a single meal, or in some cases with no meal a day. Children have nowhere to rush to, so people are embarked on IDPs because animals have already perished, all of them. And the desert cruiser, the camel, when you see a camel dies because of drought, then you know the cows and the goats and other livestock will not exist completely. That means they have been all wiped out. In terms of the response, we know there are significant response that have been initiated, both at the county level and at the national level. However, the methodology and the approach that is being used and how the targets are being, it's called blanket targeting, because everybody is affected. So when you get to blanket targeting, you need to provide at least food for each and every person, water for each and every person, and of course to salvage the little camels that have remained by providing fodders. So that is not realized. There are quite a number of issues being talked about in terms of response, but on the ground you see people are still crying, people are still hungry, and you see people have all become IDPs in main towns. And now the number of beggars in the centers along ASAL areas have drastically increased. So we have quite a number of people who have never begged anything in their life and now are begging for their survival, daily meal. So I think it is the responsibility of Mheshimiwa who are representing our people in Parliament, and of course the government that is currently pushing the agenda, so that they, they come together and find out the best way in which they can salvage the little that have remained in terms of livestock, as well as saving the life of people and reduce the effect of the drought.
Yeah, and of course the government and other stakeholders, especially in the northern frontier, are quite ardent in what they are doing to try and alleviate the problem. Now back to matters electoral. Yesterday, Wafula Chebukati, more or less in his last presiding function, he gave an account of the 2022 election. Election in Kenya is just like the former National Assembly Speaker Justin Muturi said. In Kenya, it's more or less a matter of life and death. And from what Chebukati said yesterday, indeed, it is a matter of life and death. Talking about intimidation, talking about they want risk allowance, they had to switch off their phone, they had to hide after the August 15 day. And there's one key thing that Chebukati pointed out, and which lies squarely at Parliament. They said that we've had issues on funding, and that is why we are not always able to prepare for election the way that we should, or the way that is enshrined in the Constitution. Talking about Parliament being lax in matters passing electoral laws, and also in terms of releasing money meant for election. I'd like you to comment on that. You sit at the National Assembly.
Thank you. I think when it comes to matters election and how we run it in this country, we've always had a problem. Every 5-year term, when we go to election, we get back with so much, controversy, blame game, who did what, who didn't do what, election being stolen, and all that. But I think if you look at other countries where the election is, run in a smooth scale with no casualties and everything, you tend to wonder, why is it so difficult for us to get to that level? And when the chair says part of the reason is resources, I think talking of resources is limited everywhere. It's not just when it comes to election. Right now we are talking about a drought where people are dying, herd is, swept out. But because resources are very little, the response is not felt. The impact is not, being felt on the ground. Same applies to election. If we want to have, election that is clean and seamless, then we should also be ready to invest in it in terms of financing. And you can't squarely blame Parliament for the resources that are not coming forth, because the competing interests are many. Right now we are talking of, education, rolling out CBC, which is costly. We are talking of investing in security. We are the basics. We are still at the basics. So by the time we get to, resourcing election to the level where we are comfortable and it can be...
My point of coming into this point is that we are looking at elections that we have 5 years to prepare. Not like education or the drought that is more or less like a process. But when it comes to the election, at least we have 5 years. Right now, we know very well that we are preparing for our next general election in 2027. We have enough time.
First of all, if you get to look at the budgeting that normally is given in terms of how much it will cost to run an election, and compared to other countries, for our case, it's always huge. The amount is so much that as a country, we can't even afford to the level where we can say things can go on smoothly. So first of all, we need to interrogate, why is it so costly for Kenya to run an election? Because with that in mind, then we are able to objectively interrogate why we are spending so much, or why we need to spend so much on election. And over time, then within the 5 years, we also need to be preparing on some of the areas. We should not wait until the last minute to start running around to procure kits, to do what. The last minute. It is even costly to do things last minute. So there are a number of things that probably need to be looked into, even in terms of how we spend those resources, the little resources that we get. How else can we leverage on ICT to ensure that our elections are not that expensive? Because there are countries where people just vote from the comfort of their home. They don't have to queue all the way. We don't have to carry all these gadgets to far-end areas and all that. So I think it is time IBC probably engages Ministry of ICT to the extent where we can secure our elections and make it cheaper as well for the country.
Yeah, and I'll still pick it from there, because Mheshimiwa has raised a very pertinent issue, is that our elections are very expensive compared to other nations. And of course, there's a trust deficit, Doc. You believe me that we wouldn't want, if we printed our own things here in a country, just like we do money and other things, it would be a little bit cheaper. But because of the trust deficit that we always have on our electoral matters, that is why we always have an issue. And there's also, she pointed out that we've always had issues all the election cycles. We started with Zacchaeus Chesoni, we know what happened. Then we went to Kivuitu-led commission. Then we went to Issack Hassan commission. Then we went to Chebukati. And Chebukati, I would say he has weathered the storm, because this is the first cohort of commissioners who have cleared their 6-year term. We are always talking about the must go, the must go, the must go. And yesterday, Chebukati also raised a very pertinent issue. He said to the president, please probe exactly what happened in other bombers of Kenya on August the 15th, because more or less we were on the brink. We were just there. We were almost actually having what we've always had, issues, matters that sometimes escalates to matter security, and we also have 2007 to borrow a leaf from. I'd like you to point out on that.
Yeah, Njue, thank you very much, Mheshimiwa. I think matter of elections in Kenya is complex. I call it complex because when you are given a task to fulfill and then you are not given resources, it's like you are given a vehicle with deflated tires. You can't move it. And when you can't move it, then of course a lot of other things happens now. There's a playfall that comes as a result of issues that are emerge due to resources. However, give credit to its due. I think Kenyans, despite shortcomings, Kenyans have set a new bar for themselves in matters of election.
This year? Last year, sorry.
Last year, yeah. The reason being, we were able to decide on who won in an election. We were able to back on. Leaders are able to contain themselves and keep off from violence, and went to courts. They put all their hopes on Supreme Court, and the results that have come out of that place was also embraced, and therefore we did without violence. So we raised the bar for both ourselves, our neighbors, and of course Africa at large in terms of last year's election. In terms of election processes, this is still an issue. One, nobody trusts the referees. We appoint them, but at one point, once it gets, when things become hot, you lose trust in them. Pressures come, and you want everyone, not him to act as a referee, but you want him to do favor for the person who is, playing the game for that particular day. If everybody reasons that way, then definitely elections will not be democratic. But from the way things have started now, I think in future no Kenyans will come out in the street because a certain leader has lost his seat. Because the two things that keep people together is for us to accept democracy. We must embrace democracy. And from the onset of 2022 election results, I think slowly we are embracing democracy. I think 2027 things will be much better. In terms of costing and materials for election, I think there's a crisis. Why am I calling it crisis? We're able to produce our currency, which is a legal tendency, a legal currency that we use for day-to-day things.
It is recognized.
It is recognized the whole world. What is a ballot paper? We could even use an excise book to actually
but we have the trust deficit here in the country. We wouldn't even trust our own.
What happens after you... I'm looking at not the document. I'm looking at what happens after the document is delivered. So the whole process, the document is delivered to the polling stations. In the polling stations, we all have our agents, people who look after this document. We have security agents who look after that. And therefore, what is it that you must have a special paper that needs to be utilized in a polling station by a local person whom himself cannot even tick for himself? You have to ask him, whom do you want? This one. There is no even confidentiality in the person you elect. Almost 60%. I don't like giving out figures when I'm not very certain about it as a researcher, but I mean majority of our population are people who are voter assisted. If you are voter assisted, what is it that this paper will come with as a trust? I mean, in any case, this paper will eventually end up in the ballot polling stations, given to a PO, presiding officer, and distributed to the clerks who are tasked to do the exercise, and they allow you to do the process. So any paper you use from this center, from the center, I mean the IBC HQ, to the polling station, it is only useful when it gets to the polling station, when the voter himself gets that paper and votes in. So any paper given to you, and they have pictures there and names, we are able to take and post it in. I don't think if there is complex in terms of, or trust in terms of producing papers, I think it is just our greed in terms of producing those papers.
Okay,
we want to use a lot of resources to produce a paper that we will have just used locally, produced it locally, and do our election process successfully.
Okay, and today, Mheshimiwa, Chebukati and two other commissioners exit office, leaving Irene Masit, who is facing a tribunal. And God forbid if something happens to the top, to our top politician or our president, our deputy, there would be a constitutional crisis, as we do not have an IEBC right now. And part of the reason why we are in this quagmire is because the law itself says 6 months to the exit of the commissioner and the chairman. We are supposed to have already started the recruitment process. Right now, are we staring at a constitutional crisis?
True. I think talking of the 6 months to their expiry of their contract,
yes,
we were preparing for election. It didn't make sense to tell them, now leave, we recruit others. There is also need for, institutional memory to be carried to election time. We had new commissioners coming on board, so it didn't make sense within that 6 months to let go of these other ones who were doing the
exactly.
job.
They were supposed to finish their term, just like the second-term governors were supposed to do. But we knew very well there's another governor who is coming in. The preparations phase itself is a grey area because we even did the elections in August. Maybe the president could have started that in September, in October, in November, in December. Yet the process has not started, and Senate have had to have a special sitting.
I understand. I think we went to election still asking ourselves, should we change IBC commissioners? Should we go to the election with the same people? We were still in that debate until the election time got to where we were supposed to conduct election. So as a country, I think we were also divided on whether Chebukati and the team should be the one to lead our election, or we should bring on board new team. You remember the agitation to have some change happen. There was push and pull until the election time happened. So as a country, we failed to prepare ourselves for that. And here we are in a situation where we've not fulfilled the laid out procedure in terms of, replacing those who are exiting. The ones who are supposed to carry on are in a situation where they are being investigated, and we don't know what the tribunal will say about what their fate will be and all that. So I think for me, sometimes we put ourselves in this situation because of, playing too much politics. We never agree on, anything that probably will affect all of us at some point.
Okay.
It doesn't matter who is in power.
Yeah. Back to our live discussion, we are talking about the state of politics in the country, and more specifically, we are looking at the IEBC. Yesterday, they did point out some of the loopholes that were there in the 2022 election and some of the gains that we have made over the years in matters electoral in the country. And I'm honored to be hosting Isiolo MP Mumina Bonaya and also Dr. Harun Issack Hassan, who are political leaders and also political analyst for Issack Hassan. And before we crossed over to the Bomb Hotel, we were talking about, right now we have the best opportunity to have the cleanest IEBC. We have one commissioner who's being investigated, and we expect after that tribunal has already come up with the deliberations. But let's be honest, even the government, MPs, the Kenya Kwanza MPs, they were quoted saying the honorable things these commissioners should do before even they resign should be to resign. But Irene Masit has held her ground, and she said that she will go through the tribunal, that she wants to be vindicated. But this time round, after we have botched IEBC commissions previously, is this the best time that we can have the best IEBC that will be face of the country, that will be free, will be credible, more than what we've had in our previous year, so that we may get election matters a little bit not more serious than they look?
Thank you. I'll start with the previous discussion, which we left slightly hanging. That is, are we likely to face
the constitutional
crisis? And is there any fault in terms of the process? Why did we fail to have this in place, these preparations in place before time? You know very well, Kenyans traditionally, they are known for last-minute rush. That has been also replicated in our parliamentarians. You know, there are quite a number of constitutional forms, acts or laws that are being passed the last day when they think that tomorrow will be crisis, special sittings, and they burn their midnight energy. This has been a tradition, and I think one way or another it is good to say in any process when we fail, because we are human, I think it is good to say we failed our part and we couldn't do it in the right time. Having said that, the legal team will tell us differently, but I think if as Chebukati and his team are exiting today, I don't think if they will leave the office vacant until we have another commissions in place.
Yes.
That happens everywhere. I saw from some legal team saying that they can be in the office, but their mandates are
more or less like
restricted.
a secretariat.
Exactly.
Yes.
We pray that nothing happens as they remain secretariat and until we have the clean team.
Yeah, because it's going to take a
while. It will take at least 3 months, 4 months or so.
Even more.
And if we take it very fast, such crisis will occur, because you know when you don't give a second thought in terms of whom you appoint to certain offices, then crisis like this comes. You remember last time we discussed about the commissioners, and we said, so long as you have signed against an oath, you cannot go against that oath. That happens only when you don't understand what you are doing. So in terms of the new commissioner, the only commissioner now currently battling, I think it's an individual decision, and an individual who knows probably everything what has transpired well, and probably played a little or minimal role and just flocked with the rest, decides to face a tribunal. So it is good for her to be in the tribunal, because we want to know exactly what has transpired, and I'm sure she will open up to salvage herself. But in terms of constitutional crisis, is something that we just pray that doesn't happen, but we are already in it. And we hope that our president, who is very wise in bringing things very fast, bring the selection panel on board with his parliamentarians who are supposed to be part of the process. And then we have the commissioners. I know there are quite a number of independent bodies that have, their chairs have expired, and their commissioners have finished their terms. And all that will going to bring a big issue. But the main one that is likely to cause crisis is the IBC one. And to avoid, in future, I'll only say one thing. Let's forget about our pride. Let's forget about politicking. Let's strengthen institutions and make sure that institutions operate within their mandate. And given the necessary support.
Yes, and I don't know whether my director, Mugo Kariuki, can bring in the clip. That clip is ready in regards to Chebukati. Remember also EACC chairperson term also ends today. Is that clip ready? As we wait for that clip, all right, let's first of all have that clip to just have a feel of what Chebukati had to go through. And I would say it has been a lot of rainy days for Chebukati, but he has held firm. Let's have a look.
The law are followed.
A 61-year-old Wafula Chebukati, the man who has overseen all the elections since 2017, having come in on January 18, 2017, courtesy of President Uhuru Kenyatta's appointment. The intrigues that surrounded the resignation of the previous electoral team would certainly make Chebukati not anticipate his new role at the helm of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission to be a walk in the park.
We are coming in office when the exercise is going on, voter registration is going on. So we are going to hit the ground running to ensure that all the processes and systems involved are in place. Of course, our long-term goal is to ensure IBC has proper systems in place and processes, so that not every year come in, come out election year, we have to redo these things.
If 2022 general elections is anything to go by, he had not anticipated it was to be this rough either. He was appointed alongside 6 other commissioners, namely Vice Chair Consolata Nkatha, Roslyn Akombe, Paul Kibiwot Kurgat, Abdi Gulie, Margaret Mochana, and Boya Molu.
I, Dr. Paul Kibiwot Kurgat.
I, Boya Molu. I, Professor Abdi Gulie.
I, Kwamboka Roslyn Akombe, Doctor.
I, Margaret Wanjala Mwachanya.
I, Consolata Nkatha Butcher Minor.
The resilience developed during a 36-year career in litigation and dispute resolution would be tested 7 months after his appointment as his commission oversaw the 2017 general election.
To our brothers who were worthy competitors, we are not enemies. We are all citizens of one republic.
With Uhuru Kenyatta getting elected for a second term as president, the opposition, led by Raila Odinga, would successfully petition the Supreme Court to nullify the result, and a repeat election was sanctioned.
So using some fake ID cards to register people as voters, like we demonstrated.
Despite weeks of protest by the Odinga-led National Super Alliance Coalition and calls to overhaul IEBC, Chebukati did not give in. However, Commissioner Roslyn Akombe could not sustain the pressure, quitting before the repeat polls, claiming that some commissioners were partisan and the commission could not deliver a credible election. Although Chebukati reinforced Akombe's claims, adding that commissioners had voted down his intended reforms based on political affiliations, he would oversee the repeat presidential election in which Uhuru Kenyatta was re-elected after Raila Odinga refused to contest. The commission had weathered the storm, or so it thought. In April 2018, the commission was once again making the headlines after the chair, Wafula Chebukati, suspended CEO Ezra Chiloba over what he termed as gross misconduct at the commission, a suspension that would eventually lead to Chiloba getting fired.
I'm told they're not, so that's fine. I cannot force myself in.
The development would see more changes at the commission as 3 commissioners, namely Vice Chair Consolata Nkatha, Paul Kurgat and Margaret Mwachanya, resigned. This would leave the commission with a lack of quorum. In 2021, at a time when political campaign mood ahead of the 2022 general election was picking up, Chebukati and IEBC would get a boost as President Kenyatta nominated and appointed 4 new commissioners, Juliana Cherera, Francis Mathenge Wanderi, Irene Masit and Justus Abonyo, after they were cleared by the National Assembly. This move was aimed at helping the commission attain quorum while making major decisions as well as restoring its integrity. Fast forward to August 2022 as Kenyans headed to the polls to elect new leaders.
Kenya will hold its 12th general election since independence and its 7th since the reintroduction of multi-party democracy in 1992. And this will be the 3rd general election to be held under the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Kenya is also on the verge of transition of power through an election for its 5th president. This momentous occasion will be in the hands of 22,120,458 registered voters.
To Chebukati's relief, the voting process was quite smooth, or so it appeared, with few cases of malpractices being reported across the country. With voting closed and winners of various elective posts announced, the ball was now in IEBC's court as the citizenry waited anxiously to know who would be announced the 5th president of the Republic of Kenya. And waiting they did. After 6 days of vote tallying, with constant updates on the progress being made by Chebukati, the D-Day came. Monday 15th August kicked off filled with anxiety as supporters of both camps awaited Chebukati's big announcement. The national returning officer, as per communique to the media, was to name the presidential winner at 3 p.m. A 2-hour delay would see chaos erupt at the National Tallying Center, the Bomas of Kenya, as agents and politicians allied to opposing camps clashed. After calm was restored, Chebukati would announce William Ruto as the president-elect.
William Samoei has been duly elected as the president.
Ruto praised Chebukati, terming him the country's hero. The Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition Party presidential candidate Raila Odinga rejected the results and accused Chebukati of bungling the election.
Avoidance of doubt, I want to repeat that we totally and without reservations reject the presidential results announced yesterday by Mr. Chebukati.
A hero or a villain? The big question, as Chebukati marked his last general election ahead of his retirement. For Prime
You asked me about...
That has been a comprehensive journey of where the IEBC chair who exits office today, Wafula Chebukati, started, and now it's time for him to bid goodbye after his 6-year term, together with 2 other commissioners, and that has formed the basis of our discussion today. I'm the Isiolo MP, and I also have a governance expert, and to delve right into what we have been able to see. Yesterday, Chebukati talked about the operationalization of the IEBC fund, so that they may be able, more or less like the judiciary, or more or less like how the police were given some autonomy in regards to finances. Could that help salvage the situation? Because looking at the BBI, one of the major issues was that the commissioners, there were arguments that the commissioners were not enough to actually carry out the process, and that is something that was challenged in court. Do you think the operationalization of the IEBC fund could help? And this is where Parliament comes in.
Thank you. I think I want to make reference to what my friend said here about for us getting to learn how to build strong institutions, both at national and local level. I think our biggest challenge as a country has been if we look at an institution and it's not serving our interests, then we destroy it. It doesn't matter how strong it is, it doesn't matter how independent it is, as long as we realize at that point in time it's not serving our interests, then we do everything to unsettle it. And I don't know whether it's by default or by design that we always have these, linked to financial independence of an institution. If an institution is an independent institution, then everything should be independent.
Including finances.
Exactly. That's where I'm coming to. So this idea of, IBC always begging the government of the day, Parliament for, resources and all that, is actually one of the greatest undoing that we must address. If we truly want to have institutions that will stand time, and institutions that will be free of, our interests and our politics of the day and all that. So, like you said, this could be an opportunity to do all that, to right the wrongs that has been there before. Because until and unless we let institutions grow, until and unless we invest in institutions to serve, the larger interests of a nation, then we will always be talking about IBC that is not able to conduct election. We'll not always be talking about controversy after every election. It's by good luck that last election we didn't go to kill each other. And maybe it's because we're also getting wary as
Kenyans,
Kenyans. Because it's very costly to always be on the street fighting and all that. But to put this matter to a stop, because it is for the benefit of everybody. As a member of Parliament, I'll be so concerned, and I'll put my energy where we will be able to build not just IBC, strong institutions that will serve interests of everybody, including EACC, including the police, including all these institutions. So if there's a way we can, share out resources to achieve that, I'll be the first person to support that process.
Now, that's a good thing coming from a legislator. Doc, because of the interest of time, the president also had some developmental tours in the Nyanza region. And even the media, we were caught flat-footed in the fact that some media houses or the media stations, social media, talking about the bedrock of the bedroom of the Baba, And the president, according to the constitution, he is the symbol of national unity. There is no place that he isn't supposed to go, but of course the politics of the day did come out. But the good thing is that the leaders of this region, they came out in large numbers to welcome the president and also assist him in his development tour. I would like you to comment on that because you are also a politician.
Right, thank you very much. I think the president has played a very good politics. Being the head of the state, he has thought of two things. One, in the book of, what is it called, the politics, what is it called, this book? In one of the political books, it says, a politician, first and foremost, gathers the people who have not voted him. And that's why he said there, in my own backyard, you are given 28%. their candidate, Raila Amolo, has been given 28%. In Deputy President Gachagwa's home yard, he has been given 25%. But the president only got 1%. That's what he said.
Yes.
And of course, that was a figure that was very clear. And going for the 1% is something strategically meant for, first and foremost, bringing Kenyans together, which is a great thing he has done. Secondly, he's building his political base very well in terms of how he will going to get 28% or even more in 2027 in Nyanza region. And definitely that is one on the political side. On the other side, being the head of the state, it is his mandate that he should look after everybody, regardless of whether they vote you in or not. And that happens to all politicians. Whoever has voted them in is not the people they give priority only, but the moment that you take the mantle of leadership, then your priority is the people of that constituency or that country that you represent. So the president there did a perfect thing in ensuring that he first reached out to people whom they thought that after he became the president, they were going to be neglected. So on that note, he has also launched a lot of goodies there. That is a very good gesture. I think President Ruto, his way of governance is so unique that you always find unexpected things, events, becoming the talk of the day. And why I'm saying that is that people expected everywhere, in every situation, areas where you have a stronghold are where you will first want to keep their base very well and then start moving forward. But he starts from areas which he never had a stronghold. That way, he has completely shown previous leaders that actually it's not about the voting process, or it's not about who has voted you in. It's about carrying the mantle of leadership and ensuring that each and every Kenyan feels the presidency in themselves as their own. And that way, by visiting Nyanza region, President has scored 100%.
And I would like to hear it from one of the leaders from the Azimio, Kenya Kwanza, from Azimio One Kenya coalition leader, that how the president trip was interpreted. Of course, the media also fueling the bedrock, the bedroom, the narrative. But the president is a symbol of national unity. That is enshrined in the constitution.
Indeed. What I want to say is that once you get elected to an office, you will look back and realize that you have those who voted you and those who didn't vote you. But what is expected of you is that you reconcile the two groups and you serve them, equally. And that is what we will also expect of our president. And him doing that should not be something that should, surprise people. Why should a visit to Nyanza by the President of the Republic of Kenya be a topic of, discussion?
True, we should have seen the newspapers.
Why? Because he's a president of the entire republic.
Yes.
He has got a right to move around, to visit anybody, to serve the country. The same way at our level, as members of parliament, we are expected to step in each and every corner of our constituency to serve people. So for the 5 years that you are elected, you are not a member of parliament or a president of those who elected you. You are a member of parliament and a president of those who elected and those who didn't elect you.
Well said. Yeah. Doc, still on the president itinerary in Nyanza, actually this was on Sunday where he talked about, you do remember the fiasco that we had at the county assembly. We also had the Meru County Assembly saga. The president has steered clear of politics, but on that day he just said that and also said it's shame on you, because when the president took over the reins of power, he has steered clear of politics and wants always talk about how you can make Kenyans' life better. But we see 2-3 county assemblies now starting even fighting, something that EACC also looked at it and said we need to have a look at that, because that is not the integrity that a leader should be having, what we saw in the county assembly. But the president also will say He didn't talk much about it, but he just like trying to whip them, or a thin-veiled threat. I would like you to comment on that.
Right. I think the issue of county assembly in this country, I think the start of who should be a member of county assembly is a point of discussion. I don't know what Mheshimiwa will going to say, but for me, where we go wrong is that we want leaders who, in essence, should be the head of, a county legislative assembly, and yet the level of their education is in question. And you will find people who cannot express themselves. I have been listening to Assemblies proceedings. These days it is digital, most of them. And you'll realize there are quite a number of few county assemblies who have people who are of substance and who can actually deal with what is right and what is wrong. When you have a group of leaders who have not come up very well in terms of what their tasks and roles are, then they will come up with issues that has happened in Meru, for example. But the fact that the governor has refused to agree to what you wanted, you try to say that we are the people who carry the day, not you, and then you start starting process of removing him out of the office. It's unfortunate. So I think one thing we need to do is we need to revisit the laws, or the laws that governs the proceedings of county assemblies, as well as who should be a member of county assembly, because we have a lot of resources. We have a lot of resources going to the counties, and these resources, these budgets are supposed to be legally approved by the county assemblies, and of course allocated to respective departments or needs of the people based on priorities. And if that is not what they can do, then it becomes an issue of just ticking. Either when you have an interest there, you tick. When you don't have an interest, you come against the executive, the county executive team, and you will not reach anywhere far. So I think when the president says you guys have to also reason wisely so that we run this government, they should learn from the national government executive how they operate, because from the lookout, the president has put one thing in place, that you want to do something, check out with all the laws governing that. And once everything is in order within the framework of the constitution, within the framework of the operating procedures in the government, you can bring it forth and we approve it, and it goes and does whatever it's supposed to do. But when things just happens, I don't like to criticizing the previous government, because our president was also in the previous government. But one important thing is that you will find several issues in the previous government that were, approved and later termed as unconstitutional. That brings you down as an executive. If you, who is supposed to be looking after the rules and the procedures and the laws governing everything that you bring out, and yet you have not done that, and then other people, external people, civil rights groups and other legal team tells you that, hey, what you have done is illegal, that is not in order. So I think the best practice is that people must understand understand things that needs things that requires procedures, and within the framework of the law and the procedures that have been stipulated in the constitution, in order for them to do any step that will be meaningful to achieve result, so that we serve better the community or the Kenyans that wait for us and each and every person to be served.
All right, and I would like to hear this from Mheshimiwa in terms of you are a county member of parliament and a county leader for that matter, and like how counties are working vis-a-vis what they should be working towards, and you're also very motivated when it comes to matters empowering the girl child and matters security. I've seen you on the forefront when it comes to the northern frontier. I would like you to comment on those two.
Yeah, sure. We have counties and we have national government. And I think we need to have a better understanding of what has been devolved for counties to undertake and what was left for national government to undertake. And we also have a situation where both should come together in an extraordinary moment like now when we are facing, a drought that is threatening everything that is living. So on matters education, first of all, we are reopening schools in the next 1 week. While I was coming here, I just came back from seeing PS education. And the concern that took me there is that we've made so much progress on 100% transition as a country. But I'm afraid next week you'll realize that very few students will report back to school, especially from the north. Reason being, the drought situation, the economic situation, the social economic aspect, everything, is at a point where we can say we're at our lowest moment. As a community that lives in those sites where it's largely affected by the drought. And we want to hear from the government on their plans with school feeding program, because that will attract many students to resume school. And ideally the plan is always to give primary schools school feeding program. It is never budgeted for secondary school. So in this extraordinary moment, what do we do with secondary school? Because as a parent, I'm not able to pay the school fees for the school principal to feed my child. So what will happen? Because I can't take a cow or a cattle to a market and sell it. There's no value for it. So what are we going to do? Are we aware of that at county and at national level? Then what needs to be done? Should we let our students drop out of school? Should we let our girls get married off? Because that's the only option left after next week. So there are all these issues. Yeah, there's need to truck water to schools now. Initially we were trucking water to animals in the grazing field. Now there's need to do the same for the schools. Yeah, there are emerging diseases that are coming up, affecting the herd, the few herds that has been left. What needs to be done? So when I call for action and I keep on saying the county and the national government needs to come together to save the situation, then you can begin to understand what I'm talking about. So as a member of parliament, it's the most difficult moment for us. We don't know how to address this on our own, and that is why I keep on saying we should have strong institutions that always exist to address issues that are phenomenal, that are bigger than people and bigger than our egos and our fights, individual fights. So that is where we are. We have NDMA that was specifically, set up as an authority to address emergencies like these. So my question is, are they doing enough? Are we resourcing them enough? Those are the things that we need to understand. Because sometimes we say, what is this institution doing? Because that is its mandate. Yet we've not resourced that institution to the level where it can actually tackle, an emergency like this level that we are experiencing at the moment.
All right, and because of the interest of time, Doc, I'm going to give you a minute at least to wrap it up.
Thank you very much. I think mine is just to say that the people who vote in both county and national government are in need. As Mheshimiwa has said, county government and national government must prioritize and respond to ASAL regions. Drought is too much, people are dying and they are likely to die more. Animals have already perished. So mine is for us to take back the children back to school, as Mheshimiwa said. There's a lot that needs to be done. I thank my county governor, Mandera County, for an initiative he just launched yesterday with the members of parliament there, that he has waived all the school fees for secondary schools in the county for until the drought is over. That's a very good move, and he has prioritized things very well.
You're lucky as Mandera, you have enough resources to do that.
Yes. So
the allocation is so high. So Isiolo is getting the least.
I know that is also a challenge, but also being on the extreme and much of our resources going to security, because we are in two borders that are volatile, and much of our resources basically goes to security. But I think that move was necessary, that move was good, and it was a good gesture. I was not in his team. I was in a different team. But I think the movie has done that benefits each and every child in that county, particularly Mandera West, that I was born and bred, and of course that I want to carry the mantle and leadership of that place. I think that's a move in the right direction, and he has done a very good move. We expect other counties in the Asal region
to follow suit. Yeah, and I would like Mheshimiwa to wrap it up, because she's mentioned something quite interesting in terms of the allocation.
It's good that counties are doing, commendable job in terms of response to the situation on the ground, but of course they are also overwhelmed.
Yes.
For the case of Mandera, they are lucky that their allocation is to a level where they can give out 350 million to secondary schools as a bursary. For my case, my county, the amount we get, I think after we are the second list out of the 47 counties. The other county, the county that comes after Isiolo is Lamu. So that means with the least resources, we are already struggling to fulfill the devolved function like water and all that. With drought situation, already it's too expensive to truck water, to provide food and all that. So you can't even move beyond that and start thinking of, giving bursaries on the same. And yet, as a county, we are receiving so many pastoralists into our county. Pastoralists from our regions, Those who are coming in are using our resources, not just water and pasture. We are giving them services like, medication. We are providing security. Every other service that you can actually cost for one citizen, Isiolo is carrying the burden from neighboring counties. So you can imagine why we need more allocation. And I think it's a discussion that we need to have.
Explore?
Yeah.
All right.
Sure.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. That has been the MP Isiolo County. If you like the woman rep, that is Mumina Bonaya. And also we had Dr. Harun Issack Hassan, also a leadership and governance expert, the two trying to put things into perspective, and especially when it comes to electoral matters. Remember the term of IEBC Chairman Wafula Chebukati and two other commissioners. And today we will be talking about matters of discussion that we're going to be having. Senate, however, sitting in regards to that on Thursday. We're keeping a keen eye on that. But we've talked about a lot of matters of the nation, and education had to crop in. And that is a discussion that we are going to be having. I'll be having Dr. Mark Marunga, and also we'll be having another educationist who will help us put things into perspective, and especially when you talk about the junior secondary that we are expecting after next week. Thank you so much for watching, but don't go away. We're coming back with Matters Education.